This conference will now be recorded.
So good morning and welcome to Monkhouse on Mondays. Today I'm joined by Craig Campbell. Craig, just give us a quick intro. Who are you? What do you do?
Okay, so I've been in the industry for about 25 years. I've done a lot of stuff in private, Devere, Fitness First, National Management Trainer for LA Fitness, etc. I sort of first came across into the public sector when I was a commercial analyst for Cascade, looking at people's data. And what I do is basically help organisations to improve their standards and systems. Probably the most important job for me that I've ever had was probably McDonald's when I was in college.
Right. Okay.
The systems and processes were amazing. Probably the worst job I've had, but definitely the best organisation I've ever worked for. So that's what I do when I try and help other people do it.
Good. And people often say actually McDonald's might not have the reputation around the food or whatever it happens to be, but actually there is really strong structure behind them, which is why the franchise model, I guess, works so well. But we can't talk about McDonald's but not talk about physical activity. So I know I'm much more active during lockdown. What about yourself, Craig?
Okay, yeah, no, I haven't really done as much as I'd like. The reason being is that I was joking with my wife. Every day that I've been at the computer doing work, I get down about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm on around about 800 to 900 steps.
Yeah.
At that stage, I pick up my 2-year-old daughter and have a little bit of a play before she goes to bed. And then when she's gone to bed, I play with my 10-year-old for a bit until he goes to bed. So I'm hoping that I can be a bit more strict with myself going forward. And this afternoon, I'm going to force myself out for a bike ride, mate.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I hope the weather holds for you. I had a really nice ride this morning. I tend to do my exercise in the morning. So, okay. Now, Craig, you wrote a blog recently, which I thought was brilliant. It was from the heart. I know we've worked together, and it just felt like Craig giving us some real insight into how he's feeling at the moment. But talk to me about what you've been up to during lockdown. What's the planning process that you've been party to?
Okay, so I think when lockdown first kicked in, and probably like everyone else, I had all my business pull the rug within a week. I rang up to confirm it was all gone. Now, I could see everyone was going into blind panic. And you could see it on Twitter and on LinkedIn and all guesswork going on. And I started to get frustrated. So I thought, you know what? Time out. Let's go and enjoy the kids. Right. So for probably 3 weeks, I just enjoyed the days. And I was playing with the kids in water pools. I've been doing it as much as I can. Now, every evening, I'd sort of jump on social media and have a look at what was happening in Sweden or what was happening in Alabama or Georgia, the new sites, the states that were opening. And I started to get this feeling. I got a knot. I think I put this into the blog. And I started to get a little bit of a panic. And I remember my wife saying, but you don't even run clubs anymore. And I was like, but they do. And I don't think they're ready. So the next day, I jumped on. I called to about 3 different customers. And I seen they didn't have a plan. I said to all of them, give me 2 hours and I'll be back. I put something together. I went back, started speaking to them. And that's when it scared me most because virtually they hadn't done much. I realised that they had 4 or 5 people in and everyone else was on furlough and they were all busy bloody handing out food parcels or whatever it may be. Yeah. So I started speaking to some people. That was fine. They liked it. I then got a call off Tara. She liked it. Then the webinars kicked in. And fortunately or unfortunately enough, I've probably done the same 2.5-hour presentation about 40 times now. Now, my whole aim for this was when I realised they didn't have a plan, let's say, for instance, let's just use 400. I think I've had about 500 organisations. So let's say the 500 organisations that have come on and watched, I didn't want them to have 500 different types of signage. I didn't want 500 different marketing plans, 500 different pricing strategies, 500 different membership models. So I wanted to try and bring it in and bring it together. If we can make a decision, we're all trying to do the same thing. And you must get this yourself, Dave. Every organisation tells me how different they are to everyone else. And I say, do you want more members? Do you want them to come in more often? Would you like them to stay for longer? And would you like them to spend more? Okay, then you're the same as everyone. I'll also talk about complaints. You're so different. Do you ever have complaints over air conditioning? Yeah. Ever have complaints over cleaning? Yeah. Over staff not doing stuff? Yeah. Well, you're very similar then. Yeah. So we're all trying to do the same thing, but we all want to do it individually. I want to take that individually away so we can start to work together. Now, imagine if we had 10 things we needed to do and each organisation concentrated on one and got them amazing and shared them with everyone. Yeah. That would be much better than everyone spreading themselves so thin and only trying to do 10 each.
Yeah, so absolutely.
The whole process has really been about trying to improve best practice.
Okay. And from what I've seen on the post and the quick looks, I've had a look at some of the stuff, you seem to use decision trees, and you use quite an interesting piece of software in order to try and explain the plan and explain the routing for the decisions people are making. How does that work?
So I don't know whether it's because I'm dyslexic, so I don't work in linear or logical fashion in that sense. But I did some work a couple of years back on mind mapping. So I read the Bazan and a few different bits and pieces, and I realised that our brain works from the centre out. So processing it in that way means that people can understand it and visualise it more. I've seen my same presentation delivered via an Excel spreadsheet, and it was just, it was atrocious. So you've got to have the customer in mind. It's got to be something that's going to engage them. Just because you know it and you're passionate about it, you've got to try and make it as visual as possible for them. So I think I was hearing you saying something yesterday about, there's 3 different communication styles: visual, audio, and kinesthetic. Well, the mind maps sort of give people a feel of playing with it. So yeah, it's that, and then the fact that I can convert it back into what I call cancel plans, which is Excel, then that's what makes it work.
Okay, and that's really interesting, that whole mind mapping piece. I think it just brings it to life in a different way. And you talked earlier about, if one organisation did one thing really well and shared it, I think that's really good. So talk about best practice. Talk about some of the things that you've seen that you've gone, actually, yeah, you are different because you've really worked this out and you've done something special with it.
What I've quickly realised about best practices, Dave, is that people are very good at taking your work, but not very good at giving you anything back. I can probably, I think I've had 1,499 people log on to all the different things that I've done, and I can probably say about 6 people who've sent something back to me.
Right.
So what I've found is if you want to get best practice, you've got to go and find it. It's not going to come to you. So there was one thing that absolutely blew my mind, because I think it's the future. And it was something that was done by Nuffield, by a company called High Impact, and it was a virtual tour. It's an interactable virtual tour. So as you get to the reception desk, there's a little hover. You click on the hover and it says, right, we'll have masks, we'll have desks, we're going to have screens here. Here's the queue. Click on a button. This is how we're going to expect you to queue. So this basically, instead of some video telling you this is what we're going to do for you, it's like you can see the actual areas where it happened. And I actually think that will end up becoming the future of probably sales and training in leisure. So that blew me away. And I've had one more amazing chat with a gentleman who's got a product that I've been trying to make for years. I'm not going to go through that just yet, Dave, because I'm still in process of having a chat with him. But if you want best practice, you've got to go and find it. It will not come for you. And I think we need to create a forum where people can try and do it. I suggested something a couple of ages ago to UK Active, and it was called Best Factor. So it's a best practice factor. So we look at different areas of the business. So it might be aerobics and timetable, and everyone, organisations come and present, and we pick the best and we share it across the nation. So I still think there's something in that best factor and bringing it together. But there's so many good things out there. I call them pockets of genius.
Right.
And it's that I just don't get the problem with pockets of genius. I go to organisations and it's happening in one site and not across the organisation. So it's amazing how much even the sites don't want to share best practice, and everyone's detected for their own little bit. But I get it.
And that's often because of the way we measure, isn't it? You get measured. The clubs all have a league table, and the best performing clubs at #1. So if they have got something unique to them, actually it's in their interest to keep it for themselves, so they remain #1. And I think it is about the way we measure. And you talked about the feedback, and the whole point of these conversations that I've been doing is, well, no, there's 2 points. One is for my mental health. It's brilliant to connect. It's brilliant to see you and have a chat with you. So that's been really positive for me. But the other bit has been just to drop a few seeds and a few little ideas and a thought starter, effectively, for people watching to say, actually, I need to look at that. I need to think about that. So the bit that's, I suppose, concerned me is I just don't get feedback. Just like you, I get very few people actually coming back and saying, that was brilliant, thank you so much. I get some, but not a lot. I think we're all incredibly busy. And for me, I've made an effort to make sure I communicate with people, to thank people, and to share wherever I can. And I'm so pleased that you've done what you've done, Craig, because you haven't charged for this. This has been part of what you've done to help the sector get back on its feet. So let's just think about what it looks like. We think it's not going to be the 4th of July. There's a potential new turn approaching, but we think it's not going to be the 4th of July. But what do you think we could aspire to as a sector? What's the biggest difference that we could apply and get to as a result of COVID?
We have to make people realise what our governing bodies are for, and we have to make them join them. We have to have one voice, and at the minute, I think if this has proved anything, it's proved that there's 15 voices is nowhere near as strong as one. Now, until we sort of back those governing bodies, then they can't have our voice, and we can't centralise, and we can't have standards, because while you've got these 15 or 16 break-off groups, you have 15 or 16 different ways of trying to do the same thing. So I personally think it's about getting down and making SimSpa, making UK Active, their products are really, really good. They're that good that not everyone knows about them. And that's I have a chat with Dave and I'm like, what, you can do that as well? The amount of stuff that they can do and people don't know about it. And this happens across the board, but I think it's because I build these things. I build product maps. Again, it's a centralized map that I build about people's product. And it's amazing when you do one, Dave. It just blows people away just how big our individual products are in leisure. And I think if these different organisations did it, they'd realise that they're much better than they realise, but they just don't market themselves as well as they could.
Yeah, and it's those different choices and channels of communication, isn't it? I've learned more about Facebook and Instagram during lockdown because I never used it. But people started communicating with me using different methods, and I had to learn those methods in order to be able to communicate back. And breadth just becomes bigger and bigger. My phone has so many different notifications from so many different apps every time I look at it. And it's recognizing that I can't just be on LinkedIn. I actually have to be wider than that. I have to be bigger than that. And I think that's what you're alluding to there within the sector, is actually we've got our channels of communicating, but actually that's not been wide enough to get to the breadth of people that we want to get to. This has been a fascinating conversation. It's just been so good to catch up with you. I would strongly recommend anybody viewing to read your blog, because it was, from my point of view, really from the heart, and it was lovely to read. I think you recognised a few things, and one piece in there particularly was the comment around SimSpa, that you've struggled in the past, but now you've actually had a good interaction and you've seen the difference it can make. And as a SimSpa trustee, that really made me smile and happy. So thank you for writing that in there, Craig.
Yeah, well, I want to be part of changing the future of the industry. I don't want to be part of having a go at it, because I don't think that helps.
Sure.
Actions speak louder than words, and there's far too many people at the minute just throwing words around willy-nilly, and I think that's what we've got to stop and start working towards something. But yeah, I've loved doing it. It's sort of, I think it's got me back. I don't know about yourself, Dave, but sometimes you can get caught in the humdrum, and what this has done, it's made me realise that, one, I think I do know what I'm doing. I think I am on the right track with what I'm trying to do, and two, there's a lot of people who want help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're here as organisations, both you and I, and there's an awful lot of other people out there that are doing some really great work to the sector. So at that moment, we're going to say thank you. We're going to stop our conversation because you're going to go out on your bike and get some exercise. It's been great to talk, Craig. Thank you so much for your time, and keep doing what you're doing. It's a great job. Well done, mate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care.